The words to describe Odunze: technique, well-rounded, a bigger Devontae Adams. These are lofty claims for someone who's currently the wide receiver 3. Mr. Daniel Harms, what is your thoughts on Odunze?
This is a guy who's got an insane amount of work ethic. His junior year, he comes out. He's not as big as he was last season. Maybe I got that wrong. I always mix up whether he's a sophomore last 2 years ago or then junior. But regardless, 2 years ago, he comes out. He wants to get better at contested catch situations and being more physical through his route. He puts on like 15 pounds of muscle, gets back to Washington, and he's just this insane contested catch guy. He catches everything, his body control, high point ability, timing, all of these things that he did not necessarily have the year before. He puts on full display in 2023, and that's an insane amount of work ethic to be able to get to that point. That translates extremely well to the NFL because you're always learning. You're always going to have to get better at something, and that's what I love about his game. He's a tactician at all three phases and all four phases of the route: releases, stems, break point, and then at the catch point, being able to catch the football. When you get out of your breaks, whether it's the release, all the different ways he can manipulate these cornerbacks. I think he's a much better route runner than he's been getting credit for. People say he can't really create separation. Maybe that's just something that I'm hearing. I see it quite differently because Washington's offense was, we're going to throw you the ball down the field because we have a guy who has a hose, and we're just going to go ahead and throw you the ball. And he's just a guy you can trust at every level of the field, whether it's in the short, intermediate, deep down the field. You can trust him at any given situation: first down, second down, third down, fourth down. Throw him the football, he's going to come down with it. And that's a quarterback's best friend. And that's specifically for these younger quarterbacks that we're seeing in the NFL. Some of these guys are going to have teams with top 10 picks, maybe Chicago Bears at 9. Obviously, that's not for this conversation. But young quarterbacks, he's definitely a guy you want on your team because of that trust factor.
Yeah, I definitely was one of those guys who didn't see the route running, and I had to. You understand this better than almost anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to go back and look at the film. You got to go
3
back.
times.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, I definitely see it. Like the one thing, even early on, he is the best high pointer in this class.
Mm-hmm.
This includes Marvin Harrison Jr. Odunze it's not 50-50 for him. It's probably 70-30, more like getting the ball. So I loved your word of trustworthy. And then his polish to leverage defender at all three levels. We've kind of said that same thing. Again, you want to talk about an efficient route runner, whereas we talked about someone like Malik Neighbors, Odunze. When you think about a timing route, I think he's the ideal player for that because he reminds me actually a lot of Brandon Ayuk in that factor. Can he do a little bit extra, be creative? Yes. But at the end of the day, he's going to be exactly where you want him at on time. And then he has the killer size and speed combo. He is one of the biggest wide receivers in this class, but he still has it when it comes to athleticism. And then on top of that, the separation, to me, I think separation is a little bit overrated to an extent. And then when you go back and then look at more film, it's already there. When we go to our Football Guys rookie guide, they kind of say the same thing here. And again, this is our very own Jeff Bell, Christian Williams, and Kevin Coleman. The elite size and speed combination allows him to embrace physicality. You don't have to be a physical player, but when you're 6'3", 212, you can't help it but be a physical player. And then he wins vertically and still tracks the ball well. If you watch any Washington tape, like you already said it, their quarterback had a hose. Michael Penix, one of the best deep balls in the class. Why wouldn't you just chunk it every time when you have this guy? It just makes sense. Do what works. And then he transitions quickly and is dangerous after the catch. And his after the catch ability is one of the most underrated one of the most underrated aspects of his game. Because when you consider, again, this guy is 212 pounds. He coming, if you get him the ball, he coming. So, then we go to like the improvements that I'd want to see is, and this is something that did scare me a little bit. And when you have a scheme that's good, you love that for your players, but also worries you a little bit because you wonder if it's the scheme doing too much and not so much the player. But Washington's offense did scheme them open. And again, I'm not too worried about that for him. Can he generate quick separation at the NFL level? That is something that we could kind of worry about, because when you consider that the NFL doesn't have the time to develop plays as quickly as as a long time as it does in college. It has to be a little bit
Mhm.
faster. I think scheme might matter a smidge, but I do think he's a pretty scheme proof player. Just get offensive linemen, that'll fix your problem. And then he will need to gain strength to play with increased physicality in the NFL. Meaning, to me, I think a little bit of that is using his hands a little bit better, and that's something that's incredibly coachable. Harms, what do you think he needs improvements, if any? He could be again. We're in
Yeah.
the god tier realm of prospects. So
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're as big as he is, you're like in college, you're just going to get out of my way. Like I'm just going to run. You're going to move. Immovable objects. Just kind of move out of my way. And then he's just like, yeah, I'm stronger than you. So he's not going to necessarily feel that in the NFL. And that brings me to my yards after catch stuff. I think he's better in college than he's going to be in the NFL, specifically because they're not going to be necessarily afraid of tackling him. They will
yeah.
come. They'll be timing will be different between catch and then yards after the catch. The time to be able to transition will be a little bit less. So I think that he's going to have that contact balance. It's going to be more about, can he make guys miss? Wide receivers typically need to be able to make that first guy miss to generate more yak, unless you're like a Debo Samuel and you're catching a swing pass and you're just going to run somebody over for 10 yards.
Mhm.
That's a little bit different. So contact balance for a guy who isn't the burstiest after the catch will be challenging to an extent. But then again, you're going to use him for intermediate and deep down the field as well. I'm not going to waste my time throwing a screen pass to Odunze. I'll be very honest with you. It doesn't make much sense to me. And that's really all I have for him, because he's so polished from a route running perspective, down the field perspective, timing perspective. You can use him as a true X receiver, timing down the field, and then however you want to use him in your own way to accelerate and to open them up into zone defenses and then get him into space however you want. Really, I got no issues with that. So that's all only thing I could say that he needs to develop in terms of improvement.
Yep, we're nitpicking, folks. We're trying to give you
Yeah, that's
something.
it.
Yeah. When we look at our player comps, we have our first wide receiver who actually has a relative athletic score. Um, uh,
Hey.
exactly. Well, his relative athletic score is a 9.91. That is incredibly good because, again, he has that ideal size, 6'3", 212 pounds, and I think he ran a 4.4, which is good
Yeah.
enough when you're that size. So and again, like a lot of the things that we've had complaints or things that he needs to improve on, all the tools are there very much for
Oh
him to
yeah.
improve on it. And then we look at player comps. Again, this is Jeff Bell's the best at player comps because he goes deep in that bag. He compared him to Justin Blackman, and I love that comp because, again, when you think I think Justin Black was a little bit shorter, but the size, speed, again, OSU had that a little bit gimmicky offense, but that didn't really matter. Off-field issues got Justin Blackman, not anything with this game. So I definitely love that comp. And then remember, guys, our rookie guide is available online. Make sure to check the comments to download the 2024. We go over 150 prospects, and all this is done by our Dynasty guys, Jay Stein, Jeff Bell, Christian, and Kevin Coleman. You'll hear me praise them every prospect profile because they do the work I don't have the time to do. With that being said, let's go and talk about the analytics. He has an 88 PFF score, which is wide receiver 4 of the class. 88 is still incredibly good. 3.09 yards per route run, which would be the wide receiver 10. And there's some mess in there, meaning some guys that
Yeah.
like their yards per route run aren't real. So let's just say that wide receiver 10 is a little low. Then the stat that sticks out the most is 70.8 catch percentage, which is the 7th overall. But again, unless you take away certain snaps, he's the only wide receiver that high that is got first round value. So I think that is significant. And again, a lot of this stuff, if you want to look more analytics, you need to talk and look at our guy, Jay Stein, who I'm going to go over our rookie and dynasty ADP data. Jay's been doing a lot of these rookie mocks, and we update this stuff weekly. So make sure you're a subscriber so you don't miss out on any of this information. Currently in rookie draft ADP, he is going at the 105 range, and he is the wide receiver 3. And he's kind of staying put there. And he's got the most flexible ADP out of any of these
Hmm.
guys, because then we're talking about where do you like Drake May at that point? Where do you like Brock Bowers? But again, we've talked about this with other prospects. Landing spot with these wide receivers, you could get a Drake London situation where you have to wait for it to develop, or
Hmm.
he could get a prime spot. Let's say the Bears want to go again at wide receiver or whoever. So it doesn't really matter. I think that, like, to me, it's pretty fluid. And then again, make sure to keep track of that ADP data because we'll be updating it. Let's go to the dynasty rankings. And Superflex, I have him as my wide receiver 3 and the 6th overall. Harms, where do you have him at?
I also have him as my wide receiver 3, but I have him at 5th overall. I still think because of his profile, he's more foolproof than some of your other picks right there in that range.
Yeah, again, this is if you want to take him 5, there's no way I'm going to push back on you at all. It's like we're not too picky here. And then we look at dynasty rankings. Clearly, I am an ageist. Um, I have him as my wide receiver 11, and at 45th overall. Harms, where do you have him at?
He's my wide receiver 14. Again, I had Neighbors at 12, so just a few spots behind Neighbors
Yeah.
there, and 40th overall. So we're not too far apart there.
Yeah. And what's weird is I have him higher as a wide receiver, but he's further
Yeah.
down my rankings. But it's just I like some other positional guys in between there. And all of that, all of our rankings, including rookie, dynasty, superflex, all of that is on footballguys.com. You can adjust it to whatever settings that your league has, so you could have all of these custom rankings. And with that being said, we're going to continue to pump out these rookie profile videos. We've already have one on Caleb Williams. We already have one on Marvin Harrison Jr. We already have one on Malik Neighbors. We have more coming with me, Daniel Harms, Nick Whalen, and Alfredo Brown. So make sure to subscribe to keep track of all of that info. And we'll see you on the next one.